Welcome to Set to Shelf, the Movie Props Podcast. Join Dan and Alexander as they explore the world of movie memorabilia, from blockbuster auctions and passionate collectors to industry news and conversations with the professionals who bring it all to life. If it's on set or on the shelf, we're covering it.
All right, we're back. Welcome back to From Set to Shelf, the Movie Props Podcast. I'm your host, Dan. Alex could not make it today, but he's here in spirit. But today we are joined by a guest who literally grew up in the Cathedral of creature creation. Our guest today is a talented actor and the co-founder of the Stan Winston School of Character Arts. As the son of the legendary Stan Winston, he didn't just see movie history, he lived it. From watching the T-800 take shape to seeing the first raptors breathe life into Jurassic Park, he has a one-of-a-kind perspective on how a piece of foam, steel, and silicone becomes a living, breathing character. Today, we're going to dive into the Winston legacy and the soul of practical effects and the journey of these icons from the studio floor to the collector's shelf. Please welcome to the show, Matt Winston. Matt, how are you doing today?
I'm great, Dan. Thank you so much for having me. I'm sorry Alex couldn't join us today, but what an introduction. Wow, that was terrific. The Cathedral of Creature Making, what was that? I love that.
Gotta give credit where it's due, and you, your father, your family definitely made an impact and continues to make an impact on the industry and just plethora of people across the globe. So it's got to tee it up correctly, right?
Well, thank you, Dan. I hope this interview lives up to that intro. Let's cross our fingers.
No, it will. It definitely will. Let's just dive right in. So, your father, Stan Winston, famously said he didn't just do special effects, right? He created characters for, collector, people collect movie props and costumes. They're holding a piece of, something from Terminator, Jurassic Park. They aren't just holding, a prop or a relic or a costume, but they're holding a piece of a performance. Growing up in the studio, was there one specific character that, you're like, wow, like you just found the hardest to see leave, or something that's like a flashbulb memory to you that is kind of hard to see leave the studio doors?
Yeah, absolutely. Although I want to address the first thing you said, which is that, Stan didn't see himself as a special effects guy. He saw himself as a character creator, and that is so true. He didn't like for what he and his team did to be called, a technical thing. Although there were many techniques and a lot of know-how that went into it, in the end it was about creating a character and helping a filmmaker bring a character that was on the page to life on screen. And that was what it was all about. So thank you for pointing that out. He liked to be called a character creator. So yes, to your question about which character from the Stan Winston Studio history it was most difficult to see leave the shop, man, there are many that are on that list, but the one that takes the cake, and it might be the answer to a few other questions you asked me today, is the T-Rex, the original T-Rex from Jurassic Park. I grew up with a lot of monster suits and smaller scale puppets, but to see that gigantic 40-foot long animatronic T-Rex come to life in the shop over a very long span of time, because they used to give you time for pre-production back in the day. But then it being shipped away was heartbreaking. It was the coolest character, I think, that ever came out of the shop in terms of just wow factors, though. The T-Rex from Jurassic Park.
T-Rex. And growing up, so obviously family business, you grow up, at what age did your dad bring you in and give you full experience and exposure to what was going on?
Well, from birth, because the studio was our garage until I was 3. So then we moved to a little larger house that had a little room off the garage that was about, 150 square feet. And that was Dad's lab until I was about 7. So literally I'd get up, I'd have breakfast, I'd go into the lab and see what Dad was doing. So it really is, I was right in the thick of it. Thank goodness Dad was very welcoming to the children, my sister Debbie and I. And then when he moved into a larger shop, when his career started to really take off, that was my summer job. That was after school. That was sometimes on weekends. And then when I graduated from college, I went to work for him full-time for a year or a couple years, and then part-time after that, doing puppeteer work. But yeah, so he invited me in. I was the biggest fan of what he did, and honestly, we're going to talk about Stan Winston School later, but
Yep.
one of the things I love about Stan Winston School is that it allows me to, and the family, to give to others what we were given, which was an insider's look into magic being created by the best artists in the world. So that was my childhood.
That's not a bad childhood, Matt.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
That's awesome. And, you're touching on film specifically. You mentioned, Jurassic Park T-Rex. Now, is Jurassic Park just your favorite film, or is you have another favorite, or is that pretty much it?
Well, no, I mean,
That your father
Dad
worked on.
Dad left behind an incredible
Yeah.
legacy. I would have to say Aliens, the original, the sequel to Alien, the James Cameron sequel to Alien, that Dad created the Xenomorph warriors for, and the Alien Queen, and the facehuggers and chestburster. That was still to this day might be, I think, the most perfect film that Dad ever worked on. I mean, Jurassic Park's up there, but Aliens is, for me, man.
Do you remember a lot from that experience?
Say again?
Do you remember a lot from that experience? Your father working
I
on?
do actually.
Yeah.
I was working at the studio. I was 15, so as I mentioned, summer, weekends, summers, I'd be at the shop, and during the prep for Aliens, I was there working on that, running,
no way.
yeah, doing lab tech stuff and whatever. So I was involved with that, and then we moved to London for the shooting of Aliens, and I got to spend 6 months in London with Dad and my mom and sister, and he would take me to those sets at Pinewood Studios. I got to be at most of the key set piece moments with the creatures. Dad would say, "Matt, you got to come today. This is a big day. I'll pull you out of school, or you're coming, but you're going to come." And so I got to see, the xenomorphs in that wonderful abandoned colony. Saw a lot of those sequences being shot, and the face huggers in the stasis tubes in the laboratory. And then I got to puppeteer on the Alien Queen in a couple shots. They gave me like a little thing to do. So yeah, I have some amazing memories of Aliens. So that Jurassic Park, obviously the Terminator series, come on, these are amazing. And Predator. Predator was the one I would say no one saw coming. It was like, oh, this is a 6-week job. The first suit didn't work out. Stan and the guys designed and came up with a quick man in a suit solution, 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll see how that movie does. And the Predator, they're still making Predator movies. So yeah, I have my favorites. Those are probably in the top.
What about Small Soldiers?
I loved Small Soldiers. Of course I love Small Soldiers.
Yeah.
I got to be there at the studio during, and that was a real dream come true for the team, because every single member of the Stan Winston Studio crew grew up playing with action figures and collecting toys. That's a common thread. So to get to make the ultimate toys, and Stan was terrific about it. He basically took his top artists and said, all right, you're completely responsible for this character. You're going to design him. You're going to be the lead sculptor. You're going to be the lead painter. You're going to take it all the way through. Of course, you're going to have a mechanic assigned to you. And he did that for each of those lead characters, Chip Hazard and Archer and all the Gorgonites and Commando Elite. He gave his top artists, each got one to design. And so everyone was really invested, because they got to not only work on the coolest toys in the world, but they got to really be the lead on one. So that was so amazing to see that come together.
Yeah, I grew up. So I was born in '96, and that was kind of one of my favorite films growing up. And so I'm a collector myself, and you can probably see over my shoulder, I have a Chip Hazard puppet.
Yes.
Behind me. I'll send you pictures after this, but at the Hero one, it matches to beginning of the film, the activation scene in the back of Alan's dad's toy store, and then just when he's punching out of the box too, because it was a blend of practical and then you guys some of the CGI, but it also has I have the head on it now. It's the head at the end of the film where he basically gets blown up. It's like the Terminator head.
Yes.
So I have that, and just when I was growing up,
fantastic, Dan.
Yeah, so I knew like once we connected, I'm like, oh, I got to tell him. But yeah, my parents weren't the big.
Stan Winston Studio history in your house. That's
Yeah,
so
no,
cool.
it's something I love. Again, growing up, my parents didn't let it. My brother and I have quote unquote violent toys in the house because they came out the action figure line with the film. But I could never get the toy, so it's like in this when this opportunity came up, I was like kind of like a full circle childhood moment. So, but yeah, I mean, I want to say just lives. Thank you to your father and all you guys did, because that film definitely it's number one for me.
Wow. Well, very, very cool. That was a well-beloved film among the crew as well. So glad you loved it as much as we all did, for sure.
Very, very cool. But yeah, I mean, it's just so many things, talk about, I just mentioned one of my areas of collecting that I love. So Alex, my co-host, couldn't make it here today, but he's a huge Austin Powers collector, and obviously, staying with the studios, they worked on the film. So, your father's studio created the Fat Bastard suit, which was such a massive, massive undertaking for Mike Myers. Were you around for that project? And do you have any stories or Mike's kind of just transformation of the character, him acting with the suit on, that your father maybe had to just experience bringing that character to life?
Yeah, well, that was a very, very challenging character to pull off for the studio. Anytime you're working with a fat character that's built up, it's not an actual fat human being. It's someone like Mike Myers turning him into. It takes a lot of technology. Actually, you have to deal with lots of foam fabrication technique to create layers of understructure. You have to use different materials so the belly sways appropriately. You have layers of foam latex appliances, a whole suit in that case that had to be created, plus the makeup. And then it all has to move realistically. It has to be painted realistically. I mean, if that is a disgusting character. And so his body is actually gross. I mean, like there's growths and like weird hairs and just all kinds of yuck going on. And so that takes a ton of artistry to really make it realistic. So I remember that about it, that it was a real technical challenge. It wasn't just, fat makeup. It was a whole fat body. And then of course, when he's wearing clothing, it's just foam. It's not the same. But when he's, showing his skin, they had to create this whole lifelike thing. And then the real thing I remember most from that is just Mike Myers, is a comic genius, and he is one of these guys like Peter Sellers, like Eddie Murphy, who embraces makeup effects and prosthetics and transformation. And when you see that final performance, you see the wizardry of the Stan Winston Studio team. And by the way, that character was led by Mike Smithson at the Stan Winston Studio shop. I want to give him a big shout out. He led that character. When you get the combination of that FX wizardry with an amazing performer who can bring it to life, now you have real magic. So I think that was if I think of Austin Powers, I think one of the best marriages of prosthetic makeup techniques and performance that ever came out of Stan Winston Studio. Danny DeVito as the Penguin, also a great example of Stan Winston Studio makeup mixed with the perfect performer, and so on. But yeah, that's the thing about Austin Powers. Technically very tough to pull off, and his performance is absolute genius. So that was magic.
100%, and probably no one else.
Get in my belly.
And it's just a true testament to the level of skill, because these films, whether it's Jurassic Park, Terminator, Austin Powers, Small Soldiers, it's just like a lot of the time, Aliens. It's a lot of this time, it's these things to be done for the first time. So you really have to just the smithing and just the ingenuity you have to do to make these things, one, just look right, and two, just also to convince viewers that makes sense. Like that can actually doesn't trick human eye, doesn't pick up on that's sticking out. That's not what it's supposed to be doing. So it just really blows my mind, just the level of the practicality of the skill of people creating these things. Obviously now they're CGI, but just to do it, quote unquote old school, old school practical way. It's truly mind blowing.
Agreed, and that is the trick, by the way. My dad would always say, if you leave a movie that I've worked on and you say great effects, then I have failed. I just want you to go out and say great movie, and believe that what you saw was real. Was always the goal, and that's always the trick, is make it real. And no matter what project they were working on, when you would see reference images around every artistic workstation, but you wouldn't see creatures. It would just be pictures of animals in nature. That's what they were trying to match to, was the real world. So for a T-Rex, you're going to be seeing real animal reference everywhere. And that was Fat Bastard, you saw a lot of, obese references of real people. So yeah, it's all about fooling the audience.
Yeah, because again, there's always those people who are going into film trying to pick out, like, oh, how they do this, trying to be essentially critics. So it's always mind blowing. So that's really awesome to hear that. So again, creature creation. Your father often said his favorite creation was the collective work of his team. But for you, as someone who was often on those sets or seeing these characters come to life in the shop, is there one film where the quote unquote magic felt most real? If you had to pick one movie that represents the absolute pinnacle of the Stan Winston soul on screen, which would it be? Might have alluded to it already.
Well, I told you I would probably mention this character more than once, and it's going to be the T-Rex from Jurassic Park. I mean, nothing compares to the awesomeness of being able to share space with that incredible puppet. It was the most remarkable creature that I've ever experienced in the studio. And of course, with the sequels, the robots got even bigger. But there was something about that first T-Rex, and I'll never forget. I already mentioned how sad it was to see it leave the shop. Oh, and yes, I do believe that film overall, pinnacle Stan Winston Studio. That was the greatest thing that ever came out of the shop in terms of wow. So now, being on the set, you talked about the magic. I got to see it come to life at the studio, and then I got to go be a Jurassic Park puppeteer for months. I was on every dinosaur puppet crew, except for the sick Triceratops. I did not go to Hawaii. Okay. That's where they shot that, but I was on every other crew. Dad threw me a big bone. He said, Matt, you're going to be on every dinosaur crew. And I got to be there shooting that entire T-Rex escapes from the paddock scene, the nighttime rain, the classic scene. Yeah. And we were setting up for that scene at Warner Brothers on their biggest stage. And the T-Rex had been transported in the dark of night on a semi-truck from the studio from Stan Winston Studio in Van Nuys all the way to Warner Brothers in Burbank. And now this puppet I got to see come to life is now in this most amazing set you've ever seen. You're like in the middle of the jungle, and here's this and that, and it's there, and now they're doing the finishing touches on the T-Rex. So it looks as good as it's ever looked. It's on the set, and they turn that thing on, and I got to stand nose to nose with that thing as they're puppeteering it and moving it, and it was like, ah! It was so real and so dangerous and so big, and it moved so beautifully and fluidly. I'm telling you, man, one of the greatest experiences of my life, just being able to be on the set with that T-Rex, for sure.
Wow, that's remarkable. And just like even just in the beginning, so like your father gets approached with this project. Where does he begin? Because this is obviously you're bringing dinosaurs to life. Like, what did he confide to you? Like, was he stressing out? Like, how does he even get? Like, what's step one for all this?
Well, my dad had enormous confidence in himself and his ability to gather the right people to achieve anything. And he had no idea. There's a story, like Steven Spielberg came to Stan and considered Stan, and Steven also considered some folks who had done some of the live shows at Universal. They had large-scale puppets. There was also a King Kong ride. That was some technology Steven was interested in. But Stan's work on Aliens with James Cameron, where they built this 14-foot tall Queen Alien puppet, is what made Steven go, okay, I got to talk to Stan as well. because clearly he can do big puppets. And, but there's a huge difference between a 14-foot tall exoskeletal alien queen and a 40-foot long, skinned creature, organic creature. They're night and day. But Dad didn't say that to Steven. He said, "Yeah, I can do it. Yeah, I can totally do it."
Yeah, sure.
Because he was confident, okay, if I have the right resources and I put together the right team, we can do anything. And that was always his philosophy. And when Steven finally awarded Stan the job, he goes, "So how are you going to pull it off?" And Stan said, "I have no idea, but we'll figure it out." That was it. So, yeah, that's how Steven came to him. And, man, my dad had cojones. He really did.
Well, it came together very well, and hey, listen, it to this day, it's one of the greatest films of all time, and it's just so many people they're still making movies, Jurassic Park movies, so it's clearly
They can't stop. And Predator movies and Terminator movies, they just keep making them.
And all thanks to what your father his impact that he made on those those first initial films. So that's great.
It's pretty cool. I know he'd be happy to see they're still making these movies.
100%. Speaking of creations, creatures, props, costumes, all this fun stuff. So a lot of our audience, they collect. So after decades at the studio, what's on your shelf? Like, what do you collect? Anything like movie related? Anything from your that maybe your father passed down, or like anything that you comfortable with sharing?
Well, I it's interesting. You'd think that the monster-making family would have been big monster collectors, but growing up, other than the garage workspace that Dad had in the early days in the lab space, if you were to walk through our home where we lived, our bedrooms, our living room, our kitchen, you would have no idea what Dad did for a living. You would not see a single creature. You would not see shelves full of toys. None of that. That was for the office. All that. And then you go to the office and it's the ultimate collection of cool stuff. So people are always interested when they come to the house. They're like, "Where's all the creatures?" Like, "Oh, that's at the office. That's at the office." And that's kind of the same in my personal life. Yeah. If you walk through my home, you would not know that I was part of a monster family. But here at our office, where it's primarily archival storage for Stan Winston Studio, but we also shoot courses here for Stan Winston School. We have, it's kind of like Indiana Jones and the end of Indiana Jones.
Oh wow!
We have crates and crates upon crates of.
Oh my goodness.
Molds, maquettes, masters of pretty much all the iconic characters that Dad worked on. So we held on to that. We did have to let go some of the gigantic stuff. It's hard to store a 50-foot long Spinosaurus for long. And we did for years. We had a massive warehouse space full of gigantic things that were just sitting there decaying. And eventually we thought, all right, we have to downsize this. No one's enjoying any of this. It's just all rotting. And so we did part ways with a lot of the bigger stuff. And you'll see that in museums. The Sci-Fi Museum up in Paul Allen's up in Seattle. The Academy.
Mopop, yep.
The Academy Museum here in Los Angeles has stuff. Rich Carell, a huge collector, has a ton of Stan Winston Studio stuff. He has a Icons of Darkness exhibition where he shows a lot of his collection, and a lot of it is Stan Winston Studio, and quite a bit of dinosaur stuff actually. So we've kept some of the smaller stuff and most of the flat art that was generated, all the designs and this and that, but smaller stuff now. That's sort of, I mean, can you see there? It's Jurassic Park, Terminator. I mean, it's all
Oh, wow.
all the molds and stuff.
That's amazing.
It's pretty cool. So I can't give you my address.
Yeah.
I know
So
you're
back
going to
off,
break in
people.
and just steal it all.
Oh my goodness. So you're speaking of, props, costumes. So, specifically things that your father created. Obviously, I don't know if you're, privy to the, auctions that are out there that go on. When you see these, when you see things from your father's films that go up for auction, they fetch crazy price tags. For instance, Heritage Auctions, they had they have Heritage Prop Store or whatnot. Like right now, Prop Store. So timing of this filming, we're in March. They have an auction at the end of the month. They have, you probably might have created it, but they have from the first Terminator, they have the punk jacket. That I think the opening bid's like $75,000. But just in general, the
Wow.
value of these items are very high. Like they're just like more or less down payments for houses. So when you see these things sell for crazy amounts of dollars, do you pay attention to that? Is that something you're really track or not really?
I don't track it at all. I will say I think it's great. I think it's great that there are fans that are so excited to have a piece of their favorite movie. I know they're going to take great care of that item. I know it's not going to be forgotten in a warehouse. I love the fact that so many of the things that were sitting rotting in a warehouse that we couldn't take on the road. We even looked into that, but licensing it for a museum, it was too much.
Yeah.
But I love the fact that it's in the hands of that jacket you mentioned, which would have been done by the wardrobe. I love that it's in the hands of someone who really appreciates it. And I know they're going to take great care of it. And when they no longer want it, they'll auction it off for some other collector to enjoy. So I think it's terrific. I don't track it. There's one thing I will say. We get sent stuff all the time through Stan Winston School, asking for authentication, that sort of thing.
Yep.
And some of the stuff that people share with us are like, oh, that looks legit, but a lot of it is not legit.
Really?
I do think there are people out there. I don't know any names and I wouldn't name any names at this point. But I know there's some folks out there who claim things are something that they're not necessarily. So I would say to collectors, make sure you check your paper trail. Make sure you really do your due diligence before you drop $75,000 or whatever you're looking. Make sure it's legit, and accurate and everything else. I would say that's just a word to the collectors. I love that you love this stuff, but be careful. That's all.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the movie prop, collecting hobby, a lot of people do it for love. People do it for love and investment opportunity. And where there's significant amounts of money, it sucks to say that there's going to be people who are going to try and take advantage. So it's really, like you said, do your homework, making sure that things are coming from the right sources. Provenance, the chain of ownership is key, and it's really it can be a minefield. But as long as you do your homework, do your research, it shouldn't be too burdensome.
Yep, for sure.
But yeah, so a lot of next thing I wanted to ask you. Speaking of sometimes things aren't too clear, but the Mark, Iron Man's Marvel, kind of coming to the closer to where we are now. The Mark III suit from Iron Man was such a pivot point for the industry. If your father in the shop today, what modern technology you think he would be most excited to get his hands on? And conversely, what is one thing that he might tell today's filmmakers to stop doing in post-production?
To stop doing in post-production, to filmmakers to stop doing. Okay, I'll answer the first one first. Technology, I think Stan was very much on the ground floor of what has now become 3D printing, but back in that time, they were using more rapid prototyping, foam milling techniques where they would scan a maquette, a smaller maquette, scan it, and then using foam milling technique, carve it out in giant foam pieces, reassemble it, and finish it. So he was really on the ground floor, and then 3D printing really took off. I think he would be blown away by what's happening with 3D printing technology. The different, they can almost print silicone skins now. The use in the mechanical side of things, printing animatronic structures and devices. I think he'd be blown away by how far that's come. So I know he'd be all over that. I think he'd be a little nervous about AI. Because Stan was very much an artist first type of person, and he was an artist, and he loved mentoring artists and giving them a platform to develop their art. And AI has the potential of putting quite a few artists out of work. I also know that it's an insanely useful tool for, say, like, I want to see 300 options. Give me 300 options of this. Oh, okay. I mean, it's hard to argue with like concept development, like the early stages. But still, I think he'd have a very hard time with AI. And I have a hard time with AI. Our community has a very hard time with AI. We're not going near that.
I'm with you.
So that's an area of technology I think he would be very cautious about. But yeah, 3D printing technology for sure. He'd be all over it. And he already was, for what was available then. Then the second question was, what should producers, filmmakers not do in post-production? In post-production. Okay. I would say if you are shooting a practical effect, if you are shooting a real performance and you are going to augment digitally, don't go overboard. Keep some of the real that you shot, because audiences are going to believe that. They're really going to believe that. If you overdo it with CG on top, now that thing that you shot that was real is no longer going to be believable. But if you add just the right amount of digital augmentation, it can be wonderful. Dad was a big believer in CG and the potential for it, but he also felt it was just one of many tools and was best used in concert with more traditional techniques. So that's what I think he would say. Don't go overboard with the visual effects in post-production. And then I would say in pre-production, he would say, make sure you have time for pre-production so you can actually build stuff. So you can actually build real things. Don't leave it all to post-production. Say, just shoot them on a green screen. We'll fill in the rest of the movie in post-production. No. He'd say, go ahead and build some sets and costumes and makeups and shoot real things. So
make it authentic, practical, real, just the realness.
Yes. And then add a little digital augmentation. That's the best solution.
Yeah, I agree. On top of this question too, I mentioned Iron Man, the Iron Man suit. So
Oh yes.
So were you involved at all with any of that?
At that time I was not working at the shop, although I did visit, of course. I watched, I'd come and I'd see some of the progress. It was incredible what they did with that suit, and it does stand out as one of the milestone projects at the studio. And it launched the Marvel Universe. I mean, that film launched the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But that suit was really special. It was very cutting edge. It was a lot of 3D printing technology. And a lot of it was very innovative in terms of how the design process went. From Marvel's look development, their sort of broad strokes, here's kind of the vibe. And then the studio gets a hold of that and turns it into something real and buildable. That's really where the studio can go, okay, great ideas, but if you want this to actually be built, we need to make sure it hews to, the limitations of the natural world. It has to be buildable. So then they go in, make it real, and then putting Robert Downey in there was a real feat. And then finding someone taller, more appropriate for stunt, a lot of... And then just the suit itself was using the most cutting edge, metallizing techniques to make these materials look like metal, even though they weren't. Very groundbreaking. Very groundbreaking.
Yeah, and again, it's still going Marvel Universe. It's
yep.
It's never. It seems like it's never going to end. Which it's good, I guess, right?
Well, for fans of Marvel, it's good for them.
Yeah, exactly.
um, and it's great for all the people that get put to work by those films. And clearly they work and they bring in the money because they keep making them.
Oh yeah,
So
the money's a huge factor.
yeah.
Huge. So and kind of pivoting. We chatted kind of your dad. Your dad worked on Dad's legacy, and now it's you. So you mentioned at the top. You co-founded this the school. Kind of what's your day-to-day involvement with the school? Beyond being the co-founder, how involved are you with the curriculum, the community of the new artists? What's kind of the most rewarding aspect of co-founding it, your day-to-day interaction, and seeing a student use like a Winston technique to create something entirely new?
Okay, first I want to correct you. It's not just me. This is a family thing.
Okay.
So my co-founder is my brother-in-law, Eric Lidoff. Our wives work in the company. My wife,
Oh wow. Okay.
Amy, my sister, Debbie, that's Eric's wife. We all work in the company, and our children, Rowan, Georgia, Wyatt, and Fiona, will help us at conventions. So
That's
it really
awesome.
is a family thing. It's not just me. Uh,
Okay.
so to answer your question, what's my day to day? There were a
Yeah.
few questions there. I'll start with that one. What's my day to day? Well, we are a 100% online school. We are very much in the model of masterclass. We have
Okay.
on-demand, in-depth video courses by the masters of this particular strange world of creature effects and character creation. And so we're basically an online content creation company. So I'm developing new courses with artists, mapping out how those are going to play out. I'm weighing in on post-production on courses we've already shot and seeing those through the post-production pipeline. I'm working with our marketers to get the word out, whether that's on social media or email or ads, on Google or Meta. So talking to our financial people about the numbers and making sure we're healthy.
Yeah.
One of the things I enjoy doing is if a student reaches out with a particular question, I love reaching out directly to the best artists in the world to answer it for them and sharing that information with them in our forums. So it's a little of everything. Me and as I said, my brother-in-law Eric, we run it. So have our fingers in every department to some degree. But we like to follow Stan's model of giving people some freedom as well to do their thing and not
Yeah.
micromanage. We do have a wonderful team. They're all very good at what they do, and as much as we will give them feedback throughout the week on whatever's going on, we also like to empower them to go and kick butt and do their thing. So that's that. The second thing there are a few things you asked me. You also remind me of the latter part of that question. There were a couple good questions in there.
Yeah, so the day to day, and then how involved are you with the curriculum and community of new artists? You kind of touched on that a little bit.
Yes, I did. Yeah,
And
I'm hugely involved. Save the last question because my brain won't hold on to it if you ask me now. How involved am I in the curriculum? That is one of my main jobs at the school. I am the team member who goes out and recruits the artists to teach for us and develop the course curriculum. So that will entail a few meetings where we're chatting about what they love to do, what they do better than anyone else in the world, and we kind of come up with a course idea that will show that off and that will help them share that. So I really enjoy that process. We map out every step of what they want to show. We map out what tools, materials would be needed, and from there we decide how many shoot days we're going to need to pull it off. And so on. And I really, really love that part of my job because it connects me with the artist in a really awesome way. And as I said, I grew up going to the studio and just like being blown away by the artist. I love it. And planning these courses gives me a chance to really connect with the artists. So that's a big part of my job is the curriculums. So that I'm very involved with that. In terms of the community, I kind of answered that a little bit already.
Yep.
But if we're asked a particular question that our forums admin or our social media admin can't answer, I'll step in often, and I'll connect with that person and fill in where I can. We love the community. My favorite thing, we do one live show a year, which is the Monsterpalooza convention, and I love it because then I really get to see the community, and I get to meet the students in person, and I love that. We also do live workshops online where I get to interact. We're doing a couple right now. University of Virginia is building giant creatures, and we also work with a British university right now. They're building different creature makeups.
Yeah.
So I get to interact with the community that way as well. And then the last question, the last part, what was it?
Where is it here? I'm sorry, I've written it down.
Good.
What is the most rewarding part for you when you see a student use a, quote unquote Winston technique to create something entirely new?
Yes. That is why I get out of bed every day and do this. Running a business is always a challenge, no matter who you are, no matter what you do. You have to have a mission. You have to have a why that keeps you at it, even when things are challenging. And what keeps me at it is seeing students take these techniques they've learned with us and go ahead and blow our minds and make something. That truly is the thing that I go, oh, I can do this forever. When I see that, I see it every single day. Whether it's when we run a contest, we see students putting up their sculptures or their costumes they've created, or young people, that blows my mind, like 7-year-olds with really cool parents who got them into creatures very young, making stuff. Honestly, that is the greatest pleasure of this job, is seeing students take it and run with it. I know Dad would love that. He did talk before he, in his final years, he thought, I'd like to back away from the day-to-day of the studio, and I'd like to travel the world, and I'd like to lecture at art schools, at universities, and share all these amazing things we've developed. And so that's kind of what we're doing for him, the family. So yeah, that inspires us the most, seeing what the students do with it.
Wow, that's phenomenal. That's really cool. You guys are doing that, continuing his legacy, and I'm sure he'd be proud beyond the world. So that's really great to hear, and it's makes me feel good. It's just really warming. I love that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
It's a joy.
I could put that. And so, from a student aspect, can anyone join, or how is it? Can people sign up, or is it kind of an application process, or how does this work?
It's open to anyone who wants to give it a shot. Anyone with a curious mind who loves creatures and fantasy and magic, come and sign up and dive in. There's no application process. We don't have a long-term commitment. You can do a free trial for 7 days and have complete access and check out what we have to offer, look at any of the courses we offer. If you like it, you can become a monthly member, a monthly subscription.
Yep.
Or you can commit for a year at a time and get a crazy discount. But it's really choose your own adventure. If you want to dip in just your toe and learn a few things and then take off, great. If you want to dive in and really master some things and go deep, there's a place for you here too. And also, we do cater to every type of artist, whether it's working professionals who just want to bone up on current techniques, if it's an aspiring pro who wants to go, how do I do this? Or if it's just a hobbyist who has no interest in going to, working on movies or TV, just wants to make an awesome haunt once a year, or wants to, do cosplay. They're a huge fan. So it's really for anyone who's creative, who wants to make cool stuff. You're welcome.
Wow, you're like the Ivy League of creature effects, and for people who look for that industry. Wow, that's
exactly. Although it's a lot easier to get into Stan Winston School than the Ivy League schools. You can just sign up for our school. You don't have to apply or anything.
I went to Cornell, so I can attest to that.
I'm a Yaley.
No way, really? Wow. Well, did you were you? What was I gonna say? What'd you study?
I was an English major. I learned
Very,
my native tongue.
very. Yeah, I was. I
Majored
was.
in my native tongue.
I did communication and media, so it's.
All right. Let's see.
Yeah, yeah. I think
I'm
it worked.
using English language, so it's paying off, and you're communicating with media.
Look at
So
this.
hey, thanks.
Look at
Cornell and
us. Oh man, that's funny. Small world. Wow.
It is.
Wow. But yeah, it's Matt, this is it's remarkable just to hear your story and your father's legacy, and it's just I'm sure many people are going to be blown away when they hear this. And before we go, it just popped in my head. I'm a huge Terminator guy. I think Terminator 2 is the greatest action film of all time. Just the way it kicks off, Guns N' Roses playing, You Could Be Mine, to just the whole practical effects, the T-800, the DT-1000, just everything. So, again, this is not a question I threw to you before before we met today. But, your father worked on that film. Your experience there, anything really just stand out that was a challenge for your father creating that film, or just any experiences that you think that stand out that really stick with you to this day?
Well, the challenge of T2 was to top T1 and to give Jim Cameron his vision. And he was looking for something way beyond what was done for the original. And I think that the real, there was obviously all the Terminator's endoskeleton effects, where you see parts of it come through Arnold's skin, but that had been done before, so it was really advancing that a little bit. And then in the future scenes, you see some of the endoskeletons full size, so they took that a little further from where it was in T1. But what really was the most groundbreaking thing was the T-1000 effects. That was the real head scratcher for Stan Winston Studio, is how do we help bring this liquid metal man to life? And a lot of people think, oh, that was all CG. Well, no. In fact, I think the majority of the T-1000 shots are puppets. When the T-1000 gets shot and you see the chrome, wounds form, those were all practical effects rigs. They flowered open and there was this chrome metallized foam, and then CG would close it up. Or when he would have the various weapons, like he had the
hooks,
crowbar arms, or the spike, or any of that. Those were all practical rigs they created for Robert Patrick to wear. CG just got it from human to there, and then it was Stan Winston, right? Yeah. Or when Robert Patrick is getting, wounded in the climax scene, he gets a big hole blown in his head, and then he turns to the camera and there's a hole in his head. That's a puppet of Robert Patrick, then digital closed it up. Or when he's shot with the grenade launcher thing, and he blows up into this like weird pretzel-looking thing. Yep. That's all a practical puppet, which then fell in. So it was definitely the T-1000 effects. Even when the liquid nitrogen.
Yes.
And it freezes him. Yep. And you see he starts to take a step and one leg busts off and then the other, and then that was all practical, 100%.
Really? I know that.
A double amputee to wear those legs. And then for when he shattered, that was the studio cast up a still dummy of Robert Patrick and blew that thing up. So that was full of practical effects. So the T-1000 for sure was what made that film so challenging. And the sheer volume of effects between the T-1000, the Arnold deterioration stuff, Arnold puppet for some of the shots, endoskeleton. It was so many effects in that film. So there you go. There's some T2 stuff.
Wow.
But I agree with you. One of the greatest action films of all time, and one of the few sequels that matches or tops the original, just like Aliens did. So Jim Cameron knows what he's doing.
And your father, he had a hand in both, so that's
He had
yeah.
Stan, so that's a pretty good combo.
Without
Stan and
Stan,
Jim, whenever they got together, Stan and Jim made great things happen.
100%. That's amazing. That really is. Can watch it over and over again, never get tired of it. All four of those films.
Agreed.
But Matt, seriously, this has been, I don't know, definitely a bucket list item. To talk to you and just to really just hear it firsthand, because I checked the blog on the Stan Winston School site a lot. The socials, I follow you guys. I see all this stuff, but to hear it firsthand for someone who not only is a Winston, but also just lived it firsthand and had the on-set experiences, and just to hear is really makes me very happy, and just I'm sure many people who are going to hear this are going to be elated. So I seriously thank you for just to you, your family, for doing what they've done and continue to do. You taking the time to do this, I can't say thank you enough, and it means a lot. You're just taking time out of your busy schedule to speak about all this.
Thank you so much for having me, Dan. I only wish Alex could have been with us. Please say hi from me, and thank you for doing what you're doing to keep this stuff alive, and the love of this world alive, and the love of props and fantasy and magic. That's what it's all about. And so we're in the same community.
Yes, sir, we are, and I think I appreciate that. And it's keep it going for as long as we can, right?
That's right.
Cool.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Matt. Everybody, that's another episode in the books. Thanks again to Matt, and we'll see you next time.